And how did helmet choice factor into this? You've tested a range of helmets as well. Was there a fastest to slowest that you can remember offhand?
The biggest takeaway really for gravel is helmet size. With a more upright position, helmet being above shoulders and torso, there's two different parts to aerodynamics. So we said CDA, which is coefficient of drag, and frontal area. So coefficient of drag would be the rough shape, and it's independent of size. You could be really slippery and massive and really slippery and tiny. With time trial helmets, when you see them getting really big, that's because they're having an effect on coefficient of drag. They're trying to shroud the shoulders because the head is in line with it. So the helmet itself can be bigger, but it can still be faster.
So that's the trend we've seen in time trials for the last couple of years of people sizing up.
Yeah. And I say this, like the frontal area, if their head is in line with their torso, isn't going to change that much either. But yeah, you rewind a few years ago before the wild TT helmets came out and people were finding larger helmets worked better. That's because it was shrouding the shoulders. A lot of energy has now gone into taking that idea and running with it and designing something specifically to shroud the shoulders. So like that new Giro is fully designed around that. You wouldn't wear that in a road race. Obviously, it would test horrifically poorly once that helmet comes above the torso, because then frontal area is coming into play and it's not helping shroud anything. It's just massive.
Yeah.
The opposite kind of holds true in gravel, where there's not really any interaction in airflow going over your head and helmet onto your torso. Your head's above all of that. So we saw a tiny difference in how aero helmets performed, like a watt or two. But the big difference was in helmet size. So we tested a Met Manta in large and a Met Manta in medium. And there was like a 4 or 5 watt difference between the two, I think.
Medium faster? A little bit
less. Medium faster, yeah, just because it's smaller frontal area wise. But the best helmet still was the Met Manta. I think it makes sense. Like, they've got a wind tunnel of their own. They're obviously putting in a lot of work there into making fast helmets. I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb and say, like, because of that, it's a fairly universal rule, I would say. If your head is above your shoulders, that Met is quite a good option as a helmet, just because the interaction between helmet and body isn't really happening. For roads.
And you do often see this. I remember a few years ago, like the Casque TT helmet was just testing pretty well on almost everyone.
Yeah. There are a few things that if you're not able to go and test it yourself, there are the ones that are more likely to be fast on you. The problem with aerodynamics is it's always couched with like, it depends, and it changes from person to person with different variables. So the gravel position, fewer variables in the helmet choice. Once you're going into road where your head is probably, if you're really into it, like more of a TT position, like in line with your torso, or at least getting that way, then helmet choice can vary from person to person just because it's interacting with other things. Then you get into a TT where helmet heads are really low, then it can vary even more.
Did helmet choice affect the airflow onto the integrated hydration pack?
We didn't test it that way. It's the problem with going to the wind tunnel. Like, you always end up with more questions than you came in with, just because there's a matrix of options you get there. So you can go, we've tested 13 helmets. Okay, we'll test 13 helmets with the different packs. We'll test it head up, head down, and you have to call it quits at some point. It is a technical sort of, they're basically technical drug dealers sort of thing. Like, you go in with a few questions and then they'll be like, you'll be back. And yeah, you come back with more questions, things improve, you come back with even more questions, hopefully things improve again. But yeah, you can never answer everything that you want.
So how many watts did Dylan save from walking in the door to walking out the door?
I think it was about 13 watts that we saved him all in all. There's a a couple of things you can add in addition to that that would make it more that we tested. But if we're talking strictly what's he most likely to race come Unbound or Sea Otter or something like that, it was 13. So for a 4-hour session that we had with him, like for anybody that's considering it, it is a very good use of time. It's fairly expensive, but if you're thinking about, hey, for Unbound, it's a 10-hour race, how long would it take me to add 13 watts to my average power output across that race? It's a hell of a lot more than 4 hours, and it's going to be a lot more effort. So yeah,
I wonder what, my maths isn't good enough to figure out. I wonder what that breaks down as a time saving on something as long as Unbound.
Rule of thumb, it's a watt per minute. It can be a little bit less than that. But yeah, it varies. It's a nice way to think about it. The slower you are, the greater the time saving 1 watt makes. But for the people at the very sharp end of the spear, it's basically 1 watt equals 1 minute. If you were to time trial it, like obviously.
And this is the wildest thing that I've heard around it. You'll have the actual data because I don't know it offhand. But for somebody listening who's not into aero at all, the difference from going from your traditional, I bought a pair of cotton socks, to moving across to something like your one sock, what's the savings there?
So the ones are designed for sort of road racing speeds, 40, 45k an hour. Obviously, they're going to vary in performance between people, like how big you are. But on our test rider, when we were putting the final touches together, 45k an hour, they saved 10.5 watts versus our previous edition of socks, which is.
And even your previous edition was still quite a fast set of socks. Back to like a cotton set of socks that I would have wore, on my club race 3 nights ago.
Yeah, it's wild what it can do. Like you could be looking at sort of, again, varies from person to person. You could be looking at 15 watts potentially, which is insane to do that at the high speeds. But it comes into it again when like you look at the pros and they go like the average speeds now versus 10 years ago have got so much higher, and people look at the sort of, they put their skeptical glasses on and go, if the dopers were doing this, doesn't that mean they're doping now? So no, like the knowledge base in terms of kit selection and like training and fueling has come on so far that like head to head, you could put the best guys today with all the knowledge we have against the most doped up riders from 20 years ago. And I don't think it would be close.
I wonder what that set of socks change is going to translate to time savings if I were a set of them for Badlands. Like it's a 780 kilometer race. You're out there for, I don't even know what the winning time was last year, but it's 2 days or something, 2.5 days you're out there for. It's going to be massive.
It doesn't, with aerodynamics, if you were to treat it in its simplest form, to double your speed requires 8 times more power to overcome the aerodynamic drag. There are different things like rolling resistance and drivetrain efficiency that don't work the same way. But it doesn't scale as sort of directly as you would think.
Yeah.
On top of that, again, you have fabrics performing differently at different Reynolds numbers. So
what's a Reynolds number?
It kind of factors in all the characteristics of the air. So you would have, layman's terms, basically consider it speed. There's other things in there, but not really important for most people to think about. Different fabrics perform differently at different speeds. So in our other testing, at the lower speeds on some riders, the Aero-ish socks have tested slightly better than the one. So if you're doing 20, 25k an hour, different socks are probably a better option. So the Aero-ish would probably be the way to go for sort of ultra endurance. We're not talking about sort of hitting 35, 40k an hour, but it's 25. That's probably the way to go. Benefit is they're a cheaper sock as well, and probably comfier to wear for ultra long distance. But yeah, it still all adds up.
A quick word from today's sponsor. A few years ago, I came out of my local coffee shop after a long winter spin to find my Cafe Lock on the ground, sliced clean in half. My pride and joy bike, it was gone. Just like that, a small fortune in kit, and frankly, part of my identity as a cyclist, it disappeared in seconds. If you've ever had that sick feeling in the pit of your stomach, even imagining your bike getting stolen, wrecked, or damaged mid-travel, you know it's not just a possession. It's your freedom, it's your fitness, it's your sanity on tough weeks. That's where Bicmo comes in. Whether it's theft, damage, crashes, racing, or travel, Bicmo's got your back. Their in-house claims team makes the process fast and painless. And here's the kicker. With 50% off multi-bike cover, you can protect all your bikes and even your family or your mate's bike under the same policy. No nonsense, no surprises. But Bicmo isn't just about covering bikes. They actually care about the future of cycling itself, and that's why I've partnered with them. If you insure your bike with Bicmo today, they'll donate £10 toward trash-free trails to help clean up and protect our shared cycling spaces. So head on over to Bicmo, BIKMO.com, and use the code ROADMAN to get covered, save money, and support our wild spaces. All that information is in the description below.